Hello, hello.
Hello. All
Well,
right. Shall we get started now?
we should. I hope everybody's settled in. I'm super excited for today. I think we have some really cool stuff to show Megan, so I'm excited to get going.
I agree. Let's start. We'll start with some quick intros and then we'll jump into it. Hello, everybody. I'm Megan. I am a product designer at Figma, and I sit across a few teams. I work with Nile on FigJam. I've spent some time on our product called Buzz, and I've spent some time on slides. Nile, over to you.
Cool, thank you. Hello, everyone. Great to see you guys, or virtually see you guys. My name is Nile. I am a software engineer at Figma, and as Megan said, I work on FigJam. Unfortunately, I don't work on everything. I've done a few different things across Figma, but my time kind of has been very diagramming themed. So this will be something that's very near and dear to my heart, um, showing you guys kind of our FigJam diagramming capabilities. And yeah, so should we just jump right into it?
Let's do it.
Cool. So today our focus is on our recent partnership with Anthropic, and specifically in their MCP like apps platform in Claude.ai. So to give you guys some background, if you're not familiar with like what MCP is number one, the backing like technology behind what we're going to demo today. But it stands for Model Context Protocol, and it's basically kind of just like a shared interface or a shared language that a large language model can use to like interface with external tools. So MCP started back in 2024. Anthropic kind of released it and has maintained it at the time, or and was maintaining it at the time. But it was very textual based. So like I could have an MCP client say, hey, can I get the weather? Say I'm an LLM. I say, hey, what's the weather in New York City, which is where I'm based? And then kind of the MCP server, we call it, would do whatever logic they need to do to get the weather. And it would tell the LLM, oh, in New York, it's super cold today. And that's all we need to know. And it was very textual based, as with most LLM things. But with this kind of new protocol of MCP, like external apps, you can now do things that are much more rich in visuals rather than strictly textual, which, as we know, like humans like looking at stuff. And so that's a really big unlock for us. And so to go a little bit deeper into what I'm going to switch between like MCP apps, MCP UI. Everybody calls it kind of a different thing. Basically, like a visual format for responses from MCP servers. We've like Figma's had an MCP server for a little bit now. It was very kind of like dev mode focused. So it was like, oh, if you want to get design context from a node, you want to get metadata about a node in your Figma file and then take it into code. Then early, we partnered with OpenAI and ChatGPT in their apps SDK, which kind of introduced like the first wide scale usage of interactive widgets and UI inside of a chatbot. And so this was a big thing. And so it turned out that what was happening at the time was a lot of different people had this idea and wanted to do similar things. So OpenAI was working on it with ChatGPT. There was kind of like a third party, like MCP UI sub community almost. Folks from Shopify were interested in it as well. And then also Anthropic, as the maintainers at the time of MCP, of course, thought about this as well. And so what happened was kind of everybody came together near around the time of OpenAI launching their like apps directory and was like, okay, this can really just be a unified spec. We don't need to implement the same thing 3, 4 times. And so that's kind of how MCP external apps came together. It's an open source protocol. Anybody can make contributions to it. You can look up the GitHub, look up the docs. And so that's what all of this is built off of. And I think that's super cool that all of this is like super open and you can kind of like figure out yourself how we're kind of interfacing with Claude to do this. So we're super excited about this opportunity to collaborate with Anthropic and offer this functionality to our users. And so while we're starting with diagramming use cases, there's a ton that you can do with this and that we hope to do with this in the future. Cool. So as I mentioned, we're going to start with FigJam diagrams. And I just want you guys to know that this is not the only functionality you offer or that we offer through the MCP. You can use like any tool listed on there. And we're just focusing on diagramming as our first use case. But again, like we hope that we can do more with this in the future. But yeah, you can always use Claude Code as well. We'll do a little bit of a demo of that. And maybe someday there will be MCP UI and Claude Code. Who knows? Spoilers, no spoilers, I don't know. But yeah, so honestly, I'm just hoping that we can show you guys kind of the value of like an integration like this and how we actually use it ourselves.
Totally. And with that context out of the way, we can dive into diagramming a little bit more. So, at a high level, diagrams help product teams get on the same page faster. And when everyone's actually looking at the same visual, there's a lot less time spent translating ideas back and forth. There's fewer misunderstandings, and teams aren't kind of slowed down by all of these different tools and all of these different conversations. So, it starts to become a shared way that we can think through the work together. Now, with FigJam and Claude, you can combine the power of the collaborative canvas and research and reasoning capabilities of AI. And now Claude can actually generate the diagrams using that context from your existing conversations, parse through images and documents that attach, and turn that into a usable diagram. And through the Claude MCP app, we support 4 different types of diagrams based on a few different use cases. We've got flowcharts and graphs, sequence diagrams, diagrams, and Gantt charts. So flowcharts are great for visualizing process, workflows, decision flows. We commonly use these at Figma to map out user journeys and visualize trade-offs. Sequence diagrams are helpful for showing interactions between different systems over time, like OAuth or Git version control. State diagrams for modeling state machines, transitions, and rules, basically visualizing a life cycle that might loop. For example, you can imagine a life cycle where a customer enters, uses a product, upgrades, goes back to the lower tier, potentially churns from the product entirely, and then comes back. So being able to map out those complex flows are really helpful. And then Gantt charts, which is a very helpful product management tool to map out project timelines, visualize dependencies, and help with task scheduling. So these are obviously a few of our diagram options. And if you're not sure what type of diagram to use, you can actually always just try asking Claude. It'll recommend different approaches based on your goals and even generate multiple artifacts using the same original reference material. And this is just the beginning. We're working to support even more diagram types. And as you guys start to play with this and use it, we'd love to hear feedback from everyone on what other diagrams might be helpful for your workflows and also what other Figma capabilities you'd like to see work in Claude. So that is a super high level overview of diagramming in Claude. But now we're going to jump into the fun part and actually show you guys some demos so you can see how it really works. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Give me 2 seconds to organize everything. Niall, you can tell a joke while I'm getting this.
I was gonna say, we gotta hit the points. No, I'm excited. Obviously we prepared some demos, but you know, I've just thought of some stuff and I'm like, what if we just try this and let's see where it goes.
I love it. Doing it live.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right, I am almost ready here. Let's pull up Claude and get going.
And then I'll note that like as we go, I hope that we can share out some tips and tricks that we figured because there really is no one size fits all for it. And in the end, it's not a magic bullet. Like we still have to do some work ourselves to make it useful. And so I hope we can like demonstrate that a bit because I know sometimes when I'm testing it, I'm like, oh, I give it like a 1 sentence prompt. I'm like, oh, why is my diagram not there? And it's like, oh, well, it actually just needs a little bit more. We know kind of at this point that context is king when it comes to LLMs. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can provide some really helpful tips and tricks to like actually make really useful stuff with this.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start because obviously I'm a designer. I'm going to talk about some of my personal favorite ways to use this app in Claude to save time. So, as all designers on this call know, we can waste a whole lot of time when we build out a fully fleshed high fidelity flow, only to realize much too late that an edge case might actually require rethinking the entire design approach, or the technical lift is too high and we might need to cut back. So to circumvent this as much as possible, I actually like using Claude to ideate on early phases of projects. I find it helpful as like almost like an AI PM partner to poke holes in my PRD logic, product review doc for anybody that doesn't know annoying tech acronyms, call out potential edge cases or validate hunches. So let's say that I'm working on an initiative to improve the new user experience for non-designers using my design tool for the first time. We can say it's a tool that designers find really easy to use, but everyone else who's not used to those interaction paradigms find it to be a little bit confusing. So let's say that I want to introduce a more guided onboarding experience to this user base, which is likely PMs, engineers, marketing partners, and help them like help reduce the friction for them and demonstrate the value of the product. So I wrote a PRD for this, and I'm going to upload it to Claude and ask it to give me some early feedback. Let me see what it says. Telling it to poke some holes and call out any potential edge cases. Um, so as that's loading, it'll take just a few seconds. One thing that's just like really exciting about this workflow in general is that, this is obviously a step that we'd all go through before. We'd write out our initial thoughts and then we'd like pour through the document and be like, all right, what am I missing here? Where are the holes? What is the feedback that I'm going to get? And I love that, like, while this is not doing the work for me, it's just helping me form a more concrete early POV so that it's in better shape once I actually send this to my partners. So as you can see, there's a few ideas that Claude's already calling out, a few different things that they think are bigger concerns that I need to address, some missing edge cases that I'm not actually accounting for, and some assumptions that could be problematic in a few different ways. So this is obviously great. This is super helpful. But I'm a visual thinker and I want to actually visualize this flow so I can understand how I can actually address some of these gaps that it started to call out. So I'm going to ask it to create a diagram of this proposed onboarding flow so I can better visualize the feedback. And again, because I'm an annoying designer and I want things to look pretty all the time, I'm going to upload this image reference of my brand colors to make sure that whatever diagram it creates is doing it in those colors. And this is our other pro tip. You can like ask it to use certain colors. It can parse these things off of images. Like you can really control the outcome of what these diagrams look like. So if you're somebody like me that cares, definitely recommend doing that. Now, why this is particularly exciting is that diagramming is not a new concept. Like this is always a step in our workflows, but it used to be so much more manual. So like I'd still be putting this flow together, but I'd be like pulling in all my context from the different apps where I wrote the PRD. I'd be like manually creating it like step by step and piece by piece within FigJam. And that would take a like fairly large amount of time. And now all I have to do in like this one channel is send this prompt and it's created in a few seconds. So now you see my diagram is created here. It's using the brand colors that I uploaded, and we even have a color legend here that's kind of mapping out like what each color means and what that maps to as I'm looking at this whole diagram. And you can kind of see it because this is like the visual of what MCP apps looks like, but it's basically like a mini window into Figma directly from Claude. And I can use all of the canvas controls I'm used to in FigJam. I can zoom in and out of the diagram. I can go into full screen so I can actually like see it in a little bit more detail and really kind of take in the full thing. But this is great and this is useful for me. But what I really want to do is jam on some of these problems with my PM and Eng team so that we can actually collaborate together on how to address some of the issues and edge cases that Claude called out. So I'm going to actually edit this in Figma, which is going to take me directly to a FigJam board. I'm just selecting the account that I want it to go into, loading it here, moving it to a team, and now I can have full edit control of this diagram. So I can like change the text here. I can change the color if I really want. I can add some like emoji reactions. I can like make a note on things that I want to look into deeper and star, like, is this necessary? But I need to get Nile in here so that we can actually collaborate on this together. So let me search for Nile here. Nile, can you join me in this doc?
Let me look for the notification. Yes, Megan shared a FigJam file with me. Let's see what's going on, as if I'm not watching you do this.
Oh, and here he is.
And here I
Incredible. Hey,
am.
Nile, what do you think?
I'm gonna throw a sticky down just to make sure this is long-lived. This might be our most interesting group.
Yes, for sure. So as you can see, you now have all of the power and everything that you normally get with FigJam in this like fully editable diagram that I was able to generate in like just a few seconds in Claude. So this is great. And I'm obviously super pumped to jam on this flow with Nile further. And I'd love to actually pull in my PM Luke on this too. But there's one more thing that I want to do first, which I know Luke will appreciate. Going back into Claude here. And, obviously the really important thing here is putting together a solid design proposal and making sure that this is the right thing to build. But a big piece of that equation is also clarifying what the timeline is, what the staffing will look like, what the technical effort is, so we can effectively prioritize this. So I'm going to ask Claude now to create a Gantt chart to map out a project timeline that I can iterate further on, and it'll give our PM Luke some helpful context as he starts to jump into this work. And again, this is something that is a normal step in the process. We like normally create these Gantt charts, but what this unlocks is I only have to send a prompt. It knows to pull from the original PRD that I already had, and it can be generated in a few seconds. It's none of that like annoying manual work that we used to have to do.
I would like to say,
Yes.
as someone who is not typically in like the plan out the entire thing flow from the very beginning, I'm only really starting to appreciate how useful Gantt charts can be in practice. I feel like
100%.
I've kind of started to look at them with this and then like talking to my manager and
Yep.
kind of like seeing like our staff. I'm like, wow, this is actually super useful. So this might be like my heart is in sequence diagrams, as you guys will find out, but like Gantt
Course.
charts might be actually one of my favorite use cases for us.
No, I agree. They are so, so, so helpful. So yeah, you can see that it generated this Gantt chart mapping out the entire project timeline of the flow. Now, I'm noting that it's taking us into June. I do not think we're going to get approval from our pillar leads on this one. So, but this is why this is a great first step because it gives us this initial base and basically outlines like a bunch of the milestones and like phases of work that we called out, dependencies that we need to address first. And this is a great opportunity for me to then take this diagram, bring it into FigJam, pull in Luke, pull in Nile, and then we can actually be like, all right, how do we cut this timeline down? What are the things that are necessary versus unnecessary to get to a M1 of this work stream? And so this is why Claude makes it so much easier to kind of like really get into like the nitty gritty of these workflows in only a few simple prompts. And before I pass things over to Nile to walk you through some of his favorite types of diagrams, I also want to like remind folks that while this is obviously very useful for work purposes and probably what we are using it for the most, it can also be fun for personal tasks. So I'm going to start one more chat. Every year I go on the ski trip with a bunch of my very type A friends. And for this trip, we normally have multiple spreadsheets that help us make decisions like what Airbnb should we stay in? Who's responsible for bringing what? How do we split costs? And the Airbnb choice is really the big debate every year. So let me see if I can ask Claude and Figma to make a decision tree to help us decide. So I'm gonna say, all right, we need help aligning on an Airbnb. We're weighing a few things like, does it have a hot tub? How close is it to the mountain? Is there enough beds for everyone? And let's see how it organizes this decision tree here.
I think I'm going to be disappointed is if like does it have a hot tub is not a crucial decision.
I totally agree. Okay, I guess it's telling us that number of beds for everybody is the most crucial decision, which like
I guess
fair. But like, do we really need a bed if there's a hot tub?
we can make
Debatable.
it work. The
We
hot tub
we can make
is
it work. And then close to the mountain and then hot tub.
ah
I think we're gonna have to go with hot tub. All right, cool. I'm gonna pass it over to Nile and you can show us some fun engineering flows of yours.
cool. So My use cases are maybe not quite as fun as Megan's, but I hope it appeals to some of you guys to show kind of how I use this. So I'm actually not going to start in Claude.ai. I'm going to take you straight into the IDE because what I've done here is kind of put together with the help of Claude, I will admit, a little dummy like technical design document for how we would implement Git. If you're not familiar with Git, basically, maybe this was a bad example for like a wide audience, but Git is like a version control system. So when we write code, everybody's writing a bunch of different code at different times, and we want to make sure we are all managing it. So basically, we want to control the version that we're like serving to users. And so that's what Git does. It's a system that does that, stores copies of your code, merges changes together, allows people to check out copies of the code, make their changes, merge them back, and a bunch of stuff. It's this big flow. Git is a huge thing. What this is a technical design document for how we might implement Git. It's very well known how you would do it. And so I just want to like kind of show that here we have this pretty well structured. We have like a summary, a little system overview, kind of an overview of our like different components, our data model, workflows, and then some implementation details. But again, just in this Git design doc markdown file. So cool. I'm going to stop sharing. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that, similar to Megan's PRD, we're going to take this straight into Claude and like get working with it. So here's my thing. Megan, are you seeing Claude?
I'm seeing Claude. I'm seeing Claude's very polite
Perfect.
greeting to
Good
you.
afternoon. This is
Yeah,
Megan,
I
the
hope you're
politest
having a good
one.
afternoon, Nile.
It's great. Okay. So from that, first thing I'm going to do is just drag and drop this design document in. So you can see 104 lines. And then I'm going to paste in my prompt that I've kind of workshopped here that I think will give us something useful. So here we go. So I have a design doc that outlines how we might implement a basic version of Git, and I just want to visualize it as we expect. And basically, my kind of motivation for this is that no one actually likes reading docs, and I feel like it's okay to say that out loud. Like docs are dense. When I'm coming to something that I don't know, like I really just want to skim something. I don't want to read like all your technical implementation. I don't want to read all the code. And so like I really want to see like just kind of a good visual of like what's going on. So I'm going to send this off and let Claude work for a little bit. But we're going to see, I've asked for a sequence diagram specifically, and we'll see what a sequence diagram is here, but it should show us the relationship between different parts of the system and kind of how data flows. And so I've asked for it specifically to like kind of show us by user action. And so an action might be a commit or adding a file or initializing a repository or checking out something or merging code, like I said. So let's see, let's take a quick look at what it says. So it shows us git init, git add, git commit, and git checkout. Perfect. There's more to Git, but this is like a great visual. As Megan said, this is all fully interactive. We can zoom in and whatnot. And we can see, okay, so we have our user, our CLI, our kind of engine, our storage, our reference manager, and our working directory manager. Lovely. We could go back and forth in this all day and look at this. I could prompt code with follow-ups, like to make it simpler if I wanted. But honestly, this is like a good level of detail for me. So I'm going to hop straight into Figma and go and like show you guys like what a real workflow would look like for editing this. So this customer file is me as a customer. And we're just going to store this in our enterprise org, and I am going to hop straight in. So when I look at something like this, the first thing I said is like, okay, well, it's sectioned off by like action. We have the beautiful concept of actual sections in Figma. So what I might do is just like kind of start highlighting stuff. I did Shift S to select the section. And then maybe I turn this one blue and I'm like, okay, this is like init. Perfect. My next one here is like a commit, which is great. And maybe I won't do this for the whole thing, but I just want to do a couple. This is a commit. And then cool. My last one here is just like a checkout. And then let's make this one orange. Perfect. As you can see here, this has gotten in like literally a couple of seconds from design doc, recall a lot of words, to an okay diagram, to something that with just like a little bit of customization and a little bit of organization is something that I would actually be comfortable sharing out. Like this is very readable in my opinion. Megan, let me know. You like stuff that looks nice, so I trust your opinion here the most.
She's beautiful. She's beautiful, especially with the colors.
But something relatively simple, and then you can see with the sequence diagram, it's kind of showing us like it's top to bottom, like a sequence of events. So a user in the command line in the terminal would run git init. We'd call some initialize function that goes to our database, creates an object, creates the branch in our reference manager, sets head to master, and then finally returns a bunch of stuff. Oh, it actually looks like I overlooked the add here. But add is a different flow where we stage the file in the engine, put it in, or go to the working directory manager to get the file contents. It returns that, compute the blah, blah, yada, yada. You guys get the point. I won't go through all of them. But yeah, this is, for me, is like super helpful. And as an engineer, I think sequence diagrams are the most useful thing when you're visualizing complex systems. One like fun fact I've told a few people is when we started building this system, the first thing we did was manually make a sequence diagram showing each part of the flow and like how it would interact with our existing systems. And so it's kind of full circle to like see this come back and be like, okay, wow, I can do this automatically now. And I'll show how maybe like if you had some code, you could do something like this. As Megan said, this is a FigJam. I can share it with Megan if I wanted to. Oh my gosh, hi. I heard designers are coding now, Megan, so I'm giving you this so that you can make sure you're up to date on what we're doing.
I'm gonna be the designer who codes.
So cool. That's great. That's a sequence diagram. But there are other ways you can visualize this information. We can kind of go component by component. So my follow-up prompt here, let me grab it, is going to be basically, I want to see this like a little bit more spatially and a little bit less like sequency, if that makes sense. So let's go here. So I have great. Now I want to see this like component by component. That's each of those systems here, or in sequence diagram syntax, they're called actors and participants. JN, if you're on the call, shout out to JN for doing this for a lot of us. And so now I'm going to ask for a flow chart with sections for each of our systems components and what goes on inside of it. And so while that's happening, what we'll find out is that it turns out this is a really complicated system. But like, that's okay, because what I like to think of this as is really like our starting point. And we use this to kick off our workflow and then go and like do that last bit of polish. So let's see what it produces here. Obviously, AI is non-deterministic, so who knows what's going to come out of this. Cool. All right. This is pretty good. So just looking in again, actually, let's just read what Claude said. Okay, so it's showing our layers. Okay, and then offering us maybe some more visualizations. Okay, cool. Let's just briefly look at this one again for a second. So we have a section, something that's going to compute our hashes. Lovely. This looks like kind of our entry point where we're parsing arguments from the user. Cool. Once again, first thing I'm doing is going to edit in Figma. So once again, let's open this up. Let's save it to this. This is available for free and paid users, which I love, because if I didn't want to pay for Figma, I can still use this cool tool if I have it in Claude. Great. So you can see here, it's now like a pretty well-organized layout of how each system interacts with each other. And importantly, what's actually going on in each system and what like the responsibilities are in each system. So you can see in our object storage system, we rely on our hashes to be computed in there. We can see there's some sort of way we can retrieve objects by hash. Our version control engine has a lot of responsibility here. Maybe this is some indication that we need to like split it up somehow if it's too much responsibility. I think you guys kind of get the example here. Again, I might do things like color coding these and whatnot. But yeah, so I feel like this is super powerful. I hope you guys can see how this is useful. And again, like I just love this because that first 80% of like get something on the page, like we know starting is the hardest part. That first 80% of get something down just happened in like 25 seconds. Right? I came with a good design doc. I came with some good context, but that first 80 to 85% of like, can I put something on the paper is done. And now I'm left with that last 20% of polish, make sure it's accurate, make sure it's the right level of detail I want and things like that. So cool. That's my example in Claude.ai. But once again, I am a developer and I have a soft spot for Claude code. And I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be great? Like Megan, I just told you context is king. Wouldn't it be great if my code was context? Oh my gosh.
That would be crazy.
Can read code, Claude code. Oh my goodness. Let's hop back into the IDE. Cool. So I'm going to go back into my IDE of choice here. And I am in a repo that you will see called in my seafood payload project. I actually want to, before I do this, let me just show you what this actually is for. So I'm actually going to hop back here. And I'm going to go. So this is our website that I kind of created for our Hack Week last year. And basically all it does is show what food we have every day. This is a really important part of Figma. You will find out is what we are having for lunch. And so you can see today we had kind of some salad bowls and whatnot. But yeah, so it's pretty simple. It just shows you for every day what the food is. There's like a list view. You can search. Like, oh my gosh,
I missed salad bowls today.
did miss
Sad.
salad bowls today.
Oh,
I'm not gonna lie, it was one of the better lunches of the week.
yeah.
You can filter, so maybe there's no vegan bacon, but you can filter whatever. So you guys get the point. I just kind of want to show you what is this actual project. And so our data source here is actually Payload, which is a company that joined Figma last year, but it's an open source project that provides a content management system for your project. So that's how I'm storing all my data. And I have this all in this project here. And if we just take a look at the directory, we can see it's pretty basic. It's like a Next.js app, nothing insane. But hypothetically, I'm new to this project. One thing I do when I'm new to projects is immediately I want to know how things are structured, what depends on what can I touch safely, what should I not touch safely, because there are 3 other systems that use it, and if I touch it, it's going to break. So what we're going to do is straight open up Claude Code, and I am going to paste in a prompt that should give us a little bit of information about how this directory is structured. So here's going to add prompt. I'm going to say I'm somewhat new to this project. I want to get a sense of how it's structured. Can you create a directed acyclic graph is what a DAG is, just kind of like a dependency graph showing how things depend on each other. And then I just call out a couple of things I want to see. I want to see how we're fetching data, what components are shared, and then a little bit of color coding. And like just before I send that, like I do want to emphasize that like the more instructions you give Claude, like the better results you're going to see. So like don't be afraid to tell it exactly like what things you actually care about that you want to diagram. Don't be afraid to tell it what level of granularity you want. If you're diagramming code, you can be diagramming large systems, or you can be diagramming individual function calls. And those are completely different and maybe don't belong in the same diagram. So don't be afraid to like tell Claude, like, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, and so stuff like that. So that's kind of my point here, is I'm like, I really want to see this and I really want you to color code it so it's simple. So let's let that run for a bit. But yeah, I just want you guys to see that like Claude is going to do its thing. It's going to spawn sub agents to go find and explore the code base and whatnot. So yeah, talking about like more tips and tricks, we said like kind of quality in equals quality out. Specify like how you want things to be separated, how you want things to be color coded. You can be really specific. Backing this is mermaid.js, if any of you are familiar with it. So if you know there's a specific feature in Mermaid and you're like, hey, I really want to use this. For example, flowcharts have subgraphs. You can be like, hey, make sure you use a subgraph to do this. And like, it will do that. Claude is like really, really good at generating diagrams given the right context. I guess, Megan, you mentioned a little bit of like your personal use. So I'll go into my personal use for this. I'm not going to lie, it's still code related. Oh, wow. Claude wants to really do some deep. Yeah, let's allow that bash command.
That's okay. You gotta own your love of code.
I do. This is what I do for fun sometimes. And so I'm a product engineer at Figma, meaning that I don't do a lot of work with our like core infrastructure, our databases team, our team that does our job scheduling and stuff like that. All of that stuff is like super important, but honestly, I don't know a lot about it. And I would like to know a lot about it just because like learning about this stuff is fun. So one thing I've been doing a lot is going in with Claude Code into the code base, being like, hey, we have this service called XYZ that's supposed to do XYZ. Example, our MCP server. Like, and I'll go in and I'll be like, okay, can you just explain how this works? Diagram like a super high level version of what components talk to what, like does this depend on any other systems? And like, honestly, this has been just like a super, super powerful learning tool for me as someone who knows a little bit about code, maybe has some fundamentals, but is not familiar with the intricacies of a lot of our infrastructure. I also use this to learn how real-time multiplayer at Figma works, which is like a super cool thing. We have a blog post on it. I wish, like, if you just search up like multiplayer Figma shortcut blog, you'll find it. It's by Evan, one of our co-founders. And I literally have gone to the multiplayer directory of our thing, pasted in the blog post into Claude and been like, okay, combine the information from the blog post plus the information that you see in the code and tell me something about what's going on. And it was like really, really helpful. So yeah, that's another thing is like blog posts. It's a great way to learn engineering. If you haven't done it yet and you're an engineer, I highly, highly suggest it. Okay, cool. Claude is cooked for us here. It's told me it's created my dependency graph. I have a little bit of color legends and then a little bit of high level info, but honestly, let's just hop in and see. Cool. And alas, once again, selecting my team.
I think you have to share your.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Let me switch my share. Thank you. Lovely. And this is where we are. So you can see there's a lot of arrows going around. There's a lot of mess here. But once again, I just find this super useful where I have not looked at a single line of code in this repo in theory. I'm new to this repo and I can come in and immediately realize, okay, there's a few different entry points. There's some sort of admin page, there's an import page, and then there's a couple of like key routes for parse meal, and then there's our homepage. Okay, let's go to our homepage. I'm a product engineer. I want to know more about the UI here. Okay, there's a few common shared components we expect: a footer, a meal card, an image with fallback, cool, some dietary info, FAQ. Wow, I wonder who added that. So all of this like really interesting stuff. And I just really appreciate the fact that it's color coded. I might go a step further and even like, oh, let me move the zoom bar. Like I might go a step further and color code the sections themselves. But again, Claude has listened to me really well here. It has my data fetching layer. It has, we have a couple of React hooks here. And yeah, so I just think this is super powerful when you're starting with zero knowledge. So kind of my first example was I wrote the whole design doc. I know how it works, but I want a visual. Maybe I want to put that visual in my design doc. Here, I came in with zero knowledge and I just let Claude Code go and find the knowledge in the code base. So that's two of my favorite use cases for it. Didn't get to a state diagram one, but yes, that's what I have to show you guys. I really hope that was useful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, let us know if any of these things are useful. And also, like, we want to hear more about the things that we don't support yet or that you want to do because we plan to add a lot more diagram types. So we think the ones in there are great, but there's definitely a lot more. And there's obviously a lot more Figma capabilities as well, even outside of FigJam that we want to add here. So again, we've seen a lot of great feedback already since our launch on Monday. Please keep sharing with us anything that you think as you play around with it yourself. But as we wrap some things up here, we wanted to kind of go over a few key questions that we've heard that have bubbled up from like a lot of different folks since our launch. So I'm going to take a few of these that are fairly common ones, and then we can, use the rest of our time to get some more. So starting off with a few of our like high level ones, do you have to do anything to actually use this integration in Claude? The answer is yes, but it's fairly simple. It's really quick one-time setup. All you have to do is install the Figma connector and authorize it for the first time. Once the connector is actually set up, Claude will know when to use FigJam when you ask for a diagram. So for the most part, if you're like, create a diagram of this thing, create a Gantt chart of this thing, or even like, I need to visualize XYZ, it'll automatically know to call Figma. But if it doesn't work, you can just specifically ask it to use Figma or to use FigJam. So if you run it and it just gives you text, be like, no, use Figma. Talk to it like it's a friend of yours. Just sometimes it needs a little bit of nudging. What are some good ways to actually use this? We showed a few examples, but it's obviously not all it can do. And I think like Nile and I were both starting to chat about like, the best way is to just play and experiment. Like what is actually useful to you? What do you want to use it for? Not all of those things are going to work, but sometimes you're going to kind of play around, break things, see how it is helpful, see how it's not, and go from there. Try different types of prompts, try different types of conversations, lots of things to explore.
I do want to hop in there right quick, Megan, on just like the creative uses. I am also curious what you guys are doing to go like diagram to your next step, because I think that informs the diagrams that you want to make and like the diagram types and the styles and whatnot. And so for some people, a diagram is the final output. Maybe you want that a little bit more polished. Maybe you want to ask for some more colors and stuff. For some people, a diagram is the first step.
Hmm.
Like you just want to get something on the page. It's not important. You're never really going to share it with anybody. But I think that's a really important thing. And the reason this came to my mind is we had a user who went prompt, like idea, prompt, diagram, and then into their favorite coding editor with the diagram, and was like, here's the context, here's my idea, here's a diagram of how like it should be laid out, make it run, and like almost one-shotted like a Tetris game, I think it was. And I think something like that is super cool of like what are the creative ways to use the diagram once you get it.
Hmm.
And then I think that informs a lot of what you can do for creating the diagram.
Absolutely. And I think like what that reminds me of too is like it doesn't just stop at FigJam. I think that like all of the things that FigJam allows you to do really helps with like that diagram state and strategizing and planning. But once you're in FigJam and you have access to the entire Figma platform, the entire ecosystem, there's so much more you can do with that information. You can like summarize that diagram and turn it into a deck to present the strategy to your teammates or to your execs. You can use it to influence the designs that you end up creating. You can use it to help actually create a like code prototype using Make. You have all these different tools to like help bring that idea into life in so many different ways. And FigJam is like almost just like the start. And there's a lot it can do, and there's a lot of value in like that diagram itself, but there's so much more once you unlock all of the other Figma tools. And then one other question that has bubbled up a lot is will you offer diagramming with other LLM providers in the future? And our ultimate goal is yes, we want to support our Figma customers wherever they're already working. That's why we're excited about this Claude integration, why we were excited about our ChatGPT integration that we launched last year, multiple different integrations there. Really, like, we want to make this as easy for you as possible. We know everybody's using all these different tools, and we want to just meet you where you are and make that super simple. So, while we can't share specifics yet of all of the future integrations we have in mind, we're working with several partners and thinking about how we can offer this functionality in a lot more platforms. So, more to come on that soon.
Cool. Well, I think that's most of what we have for you guys today. Um, Thank you all for joining and taking the time to kind of learn about how we're using this ourselves, learn about some of the use cases. And please do share what you make. A special thing about Figma is I promise you, we see every single time. If you tweet at us, if you leave a comment on LinkedIn, if you leave a comment like on your favorite platform, like we see all of them, we look at all of them, we try to reply to a lot of users. So if you make something that you're proud of, you see like something that's wrong with diagram quality, hey, this feature doesn't seem to be supported, like let us know. The more you let us know, like the more we'll do it. The help forum or like the support forum, if you post there, like we will see it. So yeah, give us feedback. We listen, we invest in things you guys want. So yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out of this.
Absolutely. You guys have the power. We won't even reveal just how much one tweet could potentially impact a product roadmap, but it's been known to happen. So please share. Thank you guys so much for listening to us today. Hope that some of this content was helpful. And again, we're excited to see what you create. Have a wonderful Thursday, everyone.
Wonderful Thursday.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.